News 4 at 6.
Fairfax County's police chief released body camera video today showing a deadly shooting. And in that video, the chief says it shows that the man who died was intent on killing a police officer.
The exchange of gunfire happened during a traffic stop April 23rd near the Greenbrier Town Center. 2 officers were also wounded in that incident. As Northern Virginia Bureau Chief Julie Carey reports, the police chief credits a young cop for saving the lives of his fellow officers. A warning, you may find this video disturbing.
The police body cam video shows the trouble started from the moment the officer pulled over Jamal Wali for having an expired safety inspection sticker, and Wali slams on the brakes. When the officer reaches the car, Wali tells him he has a gun, wearing it in a holster.
That was a heck of a stop, sir.
I have a gun and I'm armed, I'll let you know. So why did you pull me over?
Your inspection sticker expired.
The video shows Wali is clearly agitated and angry, shouting and cursing, refusing to give his name, telling the officer he doesn't have a driver's license or registration.
Armed, refusing to give ID. Don't reach for anything, dude. Don't unbuckle that.
I'm telling you, don't reach. I'm telling you, don't reach. I don't give a damn.
Wali begins complaining about his treatment in this country. Married and the father of 4, he came here in 2014 after working as a translator for U.S. forces in Afghanistan. The officer repeatedly trying to calm him.
The system is broke. Yeah.
Sounds like you're going through a really rough time.
Man, I should have served with Taliban.
Wali starts his GoPro. As he continues to reach toward his gun, the officer calls for backup. Wali making a cryptic statement. Today's the day.
So
Just seconds after 2 other officers arrive, one positioned at the passenger side, Wali racks around into his gun, and as one officer grabs his arm, he fires at the 2 officers on the driver's side, the same bullet hitting each one of them in the arm. We are freezing the video here, but Wali's own GoPro camera shows he tries to reload and shoot the other officer, but Ian LaChapelle is able to fire first, striking Wali. The chief crediting the young officer for saving his colleagues.
We also realize in this particular scenario that we're very fortunate that we didn't have 2 police funerals. His actions, his deployment of that deadly force saved the lives of the 2 officers who were on the driver's side of the car. There's no doubt about that.
Kevin Davis also says the officer who made the traffic stop did his best to de-escalate the situation, but the chief believes Wali's "this is the day" statement, his decision to turn on the camera, all signs he intended to kill.
Those are all indicative that he probably...
I should stop sharing my screen here for a moment. Hi. That young officer indeed just executed the whole scene. Oh, that's a terrifying moment. Just watching that, and when I first saw it, I'm like, do I really want to watch this? And trigger memories. Even back to police academy, these scenarios are played over and over for a reason. High stress, there's stress inoculation training. I should do a video about that. It's very interesting. You need to be able to work with the stress and the fear. You don't want to be dead. You don't want to go home with an injury, but you definitely want to end this shift alive. And the officer did indeed exercise good composure, excellent composure, even though there's no telegraphing here from the person who clearly wanted to initiate a deadly force encounter. And that was the whole plan all along. And I'm not going to go into really deep about the history of us translators working with U.S. troops, so I'll just give you a quick rundown because I worked with many of them in Iraq and also met many in Afghanistan. And they give up a lot. Not condoning the fact that he wanted to commit murder-suicide. That was his intent. He was ready. When he saw the cop cars, he knew he was going to get stopped. This is Virginia. They will stop you. I know I've lived in Virginia. Law enforcement, they don't play games. They're going to stop you. Maybe courteous, they're going to be nice to you and kind. They're going to stop you. They're going to see you moving violation. They're going to stop you. There's no thinking twice, maybe you catch and release or anything like that. You will see proper enforcement in Virginia. And this dude knew this. But these people often, they feel really not part of the culture, and they're not. I've known many who are, even some of the translators who work with, not for me, but previously in Iraq. They're here stateside, they're safer. There's no home to go home to. Someone knows them, someone grew up with them, went to school with them, went to college, met their parents. There's, once you work with coalition forces and all that, the whole scene changes. Life changes for them. You got a beard, you better shave it. I've told people, have this chat, change your name, shave the beard and the mustache. Very unique look for the Middle East, not to get rid of a mustache, but it will definitely not identify a man in a certain way. Someone might not recognize them, and just pack up a bag and go. State Department used to do that. They had a program, I don't know if we still do, where you just basically, it's kind of like a WITSEC. That's how it worked. And it's very sad to see these guys try to blend in, and they just don't blend in well, and they miss their language, they miss their culture, they miss where they grew up. They don't have those connections. I can see where the stress comes from. This man already has some military training. He's been embedded with U.S. forces, so he was acquainted with the use of small arms. I have no idea if that was actually a legally acquired weapon, and maybe until that moment when he engaged the officers right then and there, he had been a law-abiding citizen until that day. He's had enough. He cannot cope with the stress. That was planned, clearly. They're stomping on the brakes. I've seen this on the highways. I'm sure this happened to you too. Very annoying. This is someone who clearly knows who's behind them. So you got to have your head on a swivel. That cop really handled himself real beautifully, because I've had the same circumstances where I've told someone, you need to leave the scene now. And I know they're not violent, but they're in that mood, only to observe them go to a car and come back many minutes later with a weapon. So that's why cops are the way they are. So whatever your opinions are, law enforcement, that is a thankless job. I'm going to put it up to you. I don't do it anymore. It's thankless. But it can be exciting. It can be very exciting. Doing nothing for most of the shift, and then something hits the fan. That's your day right there. A lot of ups and downs. But this is one of those times we really have to admire what everybody's doing out there on the street, that we don't have to really worry about so much. And it's just nerve-wracking, just having to go on duty and just not knowing what the day will bring, which is also the other factor of how some of us will find that to be enjoyable. I don't think it's enjoyable right now because I'm older and I just don't like surprises. I get cranky when I get a surprise. So imagine that. That's a hustle for young people. Moving on. I wanted to talk some more about stopping offline for quite some time. Just a weird array of criminal activity in this town. Mainly, and I'll get to the murder of the couple. And then at this point, I guess I don't even know if I can catch up with the terrorist attack. I'll call it that. I feel pretty confident that I can call it a terrorist attack in Boulder. I will be terrorized to no end if someone came at me with a homemade flamethrower while exercising my right to gather peacefully and lawfully. But the assassination of the young couple in DC, and I didn't even pull it up, and I don't even want to play the sound on this, mainly because it's pretty sad. And not only that, there's something about security going from high level of awareness, and I'm speaking about even a young cop just straight out of the academy. It's usually when they get piped up, we have the most energy and we're younger and everything moves and we got that head on swivel. It's different than someone's been around for a long time. The experience, it's just older, not just older cops, but more senior cops will see something and then we'll work with it and then get the backup. And this young officer was amazing. Got the backup and still trying to de-escalate. That's a huge. The minute you tell me, yeah, I got a weapon, okay, that's legal. You can tell an officer when they stop you. that, yes, I'm armed, by the way, just for both our protections. That's normal lingo for anyone who carries lawfully. And I want to make sure to say that. If you're not, the bad guy's not going to tell you. He wanted to engage the officer or officers in a shootout. That's what he wanted. So clearly he's not telegraphing, he's telling. In this case, this is just a coward waiting, and it rained all week that week. And this is a beautiful building. I have yet to be inside because they expanded everything, and the place, that whole section, it's right across the street from the FBI's Washington field office. And there's always officers right outside because they have a gate. They have an entryway and they do security checks there. And my old church is directly in front of it. So the Jewish Museum Center is just right around the corner. And that whole area has been opened up in the past few years. And it used to be closed in, and that whole roadway was open, and it just linked up downtown to that section of DC, which is wonderful. There's more foot traffic. I thought it made it safer within the scope of crime in the city, because it seemed like that was a sleepy corner of town. And leaving mass sometimes for special occasions out of there, I always swivel head, because it was a very quiet corner of DC, even though it's in Northwest and the city hall's down the street and you got the courthouses and all that, and Pennsylvania Avenue is not far from there. And the law enforcement memorial is just basically just about a block away from the scene of the crime. So this is a guy who's been conducting surveillance on foot. Where exactly, I do not know. I won't try to analyze that, but I know the spot. I know that there are armed officers, federal officers, right next door. And rather surprised that I'm sure there's video footage of the activity, but there's no engagement, like where with no one outside. I know it was raining, and like I said, I'm not going to judge. I've stood watch on a post, and yeah, I'm not going to stand in the rain. And there's a guard shack for that. And I hate to call it a guard shack because I was not the guard. But to be more specific, if it's a rainy night and there's nothing going on and there's only a big shindig across the street, a cocktail hour, and they're having a fancy event, raising funds for, horribly enough, because they're raising funds for Gaza refugees or whatever it was, for relief. And two people who are going to get married, they just left the party. And they're probably walking through the car. People usually they have their cars parked down the street. Maybe there's a parking garage not far from there, and gun them down. All the particulars are already online, available for your review. Just wanted to touch briefly on one thing that really concerned me. First, the officer, the difference between a security officer inside of a museum. And I know I did for my travel blog, and I'm going to be adding some new stuff here pretty soon. The security officer allowed the shooter inside the building following the murders. And plenty of witnesses could hear gunfire, because everybody's used to hearing gunfire in DC. Even the people who never handle a gun, they know what small arms fire sounds. Pretty sad, but realistic. And the disconnect between hearing something and actually seeing it. I'm pretty sure whatever video footage is from all the adjacent buildings, including the FBI's building, prove that was such a simple setup. And I've seen people outside of my church and back in the day, just whom I thought were casing it, because violence against religious groups and institutions seems to be the thing now. And I was always campaigning to have more security at the church. Let's just say I got laughed at, probably mocked behind my back. It's okay. It's all right. I do feel it deeply, though, because it went to get off the path for a few moments. Indulge me. Far too many priests, I'm Catholic, have been murdered while conducting mass. Somebody that I ejected from church. I got people that stopped talking to me because I escorted somebody who, just homeless or harmless. I don't know why they're taking stuff out of their bag during the middle of mass. It's creeping me out. So myself and another person came out and escorted this person out. This person tried to bite me in the hand. It was not a whole scene, but I thought I would carry her out pretty quietly. Just picked up things quietly, and the mass continued. Everybody's looking the other way. Sometimes you cannot ignore a problem. So going back on the path where I was, this couple being murdered, and then the gunman rushing in. One of the scariest things, because I think he was satisfied. He just wanted an easy target, which is pretty obvious. The first guy, he has a hard target. He has to lure the target first. He has to have some moving violations. He set it all up. He wants to engage in that firefight. Second one, he wants no firefight. He wants to live so he can make a statement. The swan song of the loser. And so he guns down an unarmed couple. The woman he chased when she crawled away and shot her in the back many times. That's quite a scene there. And then him running in out of the rain and into the building and being allowed by the security officer. That to me is the second spookiest thing of that horrific evening. And I have been a witness to one particular shooting where people were in a building where there was only one exit, one in and out, and they were going out when they heard a commotion. I'm not going to tell that story today, but I only saw an arm, an extension of an arm, and a car crash, and I saw a weapon, someone really skinny holding a handgun, and that's all I needed to know. And I missed a great deal of the action, but what I could see from inside the building happening outside, I managed to tell people not to go outside and open that door. Do not open that door. Why don't you open that door? Because what's going on outside is none of your business. Can I put it in better terms? No, I want to be rude today. This is a rant, and it's been building up for a few years. And I've lived in great neighborhoods where we actually had police in foot pursuit of someone, and everybody's all excited and they want to come outside, and no, you don't open your doors. Police would tell you on TV, close your doors, lock them, lock the windows. You should have your windows locked anyway. Just don't leave any vulnerability in your home, or in your office or workplace. When you think you see something where police are running, check your doors. That should be the first thing you do. And then you can monitor from a window, but try not to stick your head out. Bullets do fly. Sadly, they go in the direction they go. That's just physics. You can't control it, and you may be that one place where they land. And it's very sad, but I wanted to show you this is what you don't do. And I'm sure you've already seen that, because you see what the name of the video is. And I think it's great, especially in California. Someone owns a gun. I lived in California, and it never occurred to me to get a license out there. But the fact that she appears to have a security mindset, but I would be concerned that she just came out armed to check. And I was pretty sure that she probably spotted police, but she decided to step out anyway. That's one of those occasions where you stay out of it by staying inside the house. Did they cross through your property? Did they break your curtilage of your precious property? Yes. Are they on your property? Are they inside the house? If they're inside the house, I don't want to talk about this. If they're not inside the house, that's not your territory. Even it could be a yard. I've seen them on my own property, just got across. It's good. Let them chase. They're not going to be here for long. Do not get involved. So what happened here in the judicial system, we still treat females differently than we treat men. That's still appalling in the year 2025. I'm still checking my watch to see if that's really the year. She had a weapon, and she came out. The cops don't really know why the hell she's stepping out of the house with a gun. Is she part of that? Is she maybe harboring the criminal? And they're chasing. The guy was pretty smart. He undressed, and then he jumped into someone's pool, trying to make it look like he belonged there. That's hilarious on many levels. But her, why? What was that? What was the thinking process on that one? I'm still trying to figure it out. So they shot her on the shoulder. She's lucky. A man shooting a man, and I'm not saying this to be prejudicial. I'm just saying that women are treated a whole lot nicer. Fewer notches are hooked on that and that decision making. The cop shouldn't have to say and think, I don't want to shoot this female. You're going to have to, because she's got a gun. I'm sure that gun has bullets in it. They want to go home alive. So don't get involved. Just like I've seen 20 times, there's some commotion outside. You can peek through, take a look. Don't actually step out of the building or the house. Even if you think it's on your property, you can call it in and say, hey, something going on, it's on my property. Yeah, cops are on there, they're pursuing someone. That's all you need to know. The phone, you should have a phone ready. Your weapon, if you have a weapon, it's your weapon inside the house, by all means. I wouldn't have stepped out. So I don't know what the rationale was on that one, but that the good guys can think that someone who's innocent that thought that they could help, or they just stepped out of the house fully armed, they're going to see that as a threat. And like I said, being shot in the shoulder is very lucky to be able to walk away. They use leniency, speed and leniency. That's really hard. When somebody, she may not be pointing a gun at them, maybe she did. And if the officer perceived that, then that's where the engagement comes from. Still very lucky that they only shot her. We shoot to stop to begin with, but that they shot her on the shoulder. That's a very strategically placed shot. That was not an accident. Oh, I just hit her in the shoulder. I was aiming for center mass for that woman, an armed woman. An armed woman is just as dangerous as an armed man. Leave it at that. But hooray for quick thinking and good judgment and having a good placement for that shot. That's all I can give you on that one. Don't leave the house. I certainly wouldn't. Hear or see it, you may hear the AC because I'm heat intolerant. And the humidity is just not to my liking. I apologize if you hear a little buzz in the background, but don't leave the house. That's all I could give you on that one. I'm going to be interviewing pretty soon, hopefully at the end of the month, on a topic of labor law. And I'm going to mixing a little bit with that, with security and law enforcement and safety in general. But this case, I want to show you briefly, and I'll bring it up during the interview, for a labor law attorney that I'm really excited to talk to. I'm going to be covering some topics related to, of course, hiring, firing, getting downsized. I've experienced downsizing, not the firing, but the hiring part. If you have a small business and you're looking for more guidance on how to handle employee relations, and you're not exactly, you're small, it could be a middle-sized company as well. You're invited to watch. I'm going to bring up some of the current issues in the workplace that have legal ramifications for someone's business. So just stay tuned. I'm hoping at the end of the month. But I want to share quickly this really disturbing story, and I want to probably open with that. And that this is I believe in Arizona. So I like hotels, but hotels can be scary environments because security has to be on point, and there are so many moving parts. And this particular individual, sadly, ended up going to a some sort of a job workplace training trip. If you've worked for a large company, they do those, maybe a retreat, and that's in Michigan. And they had an event, and the man and woman talked, and this is all that happened. He managed to get a hold of a key to her room after she retired for the evening. And without being invited, he proceeded to take the key, unlock the door, helped himself to the woman, and then he fled. Of course, he was arrested. And I would have a problem traveling and staying at a hotel. There was a case of, and this is I want to discuss it at the end of the month, and hopefully that will air before the very end of the month. We'll see. My attorney guessed he has some commitments, and I had to reschedule the interview from last month to this month. And I don't even want to show the video because it's just, yeah, I should. Well, I'm just a little bit here. But this guy, you can't trust anyone at the workplace. Like, this is probably it's just horrific to think that someone from work would just go to the front desk, and this is where I'm coming from, about the liability with hotels and that too many moving parts. But how do you train your people? This is going to be one of the topics I'm going to be discussing with the attorney, because hiring and firing, that's fairly easy, but then the firing, this is pretty obvious. This doesn't result in an arrest for this person working for this company, charged criminally, and then you have the employee at the hotel who was fired. But it always happens this way, doesn't it? That employee was fired, and I've worked for companies where it's resolved. Some matter that's really serious is resolved. I told you that story about pedophile. I don't want to get started on that, but the companies handle things quietly. I understand to an extent. These are terrible crimes. So my knee-jerk action would be to make sure to document and then get local authorities involved. And here, this is someone who apparently thought he could get away with it, and did he think he was going to go back to work? Did the guy who gave him the key, that he check his ID? I know he didn't check his ID. I know I'm being silly asking this question because it's just stupid. Are you working, if someone is working at the front desk, if it's like a night manager, they have a lot of responsibility in hospitality industry. I would not be able to understand one bit why someone would hand the key to the room that's not under their name. It's pretty sickening. I just wanted to give you a little preview. This is one of the topics. So if you have any questions about, like I said, hiring, or just having a really good relationship with your employees and knowing exactly what your rights are as business owners, and also about the rights of your employees when you hire them, do you have the policies in writing? And most companies or businesses, they do have some policies, but as I've done some consulting and actually rewritten policies and manuals and documentation that comes from doing business, I'm always left surprised. How come they're still doing business? Because the paperwork, if documentation isn't up to par, I'm just surprised how companies, businesses are still operating. And meaning that we all are employed by someone, we have to sign some sort of an agreement, and we have some rules of the game, conduct, what's tolerated, what's not tolerated, and how you will be treated in the case you do something or I do something that's not quite kosher, and how does the company handle it, and who comes in to the business to handle the things that nobody else wants to do, which is usually letting someone go. And like I said, I've been let go. It's unpleasant, but they always have a wingman. You can't just do a firing by yourself. Or, for example, and some people quit before they're going to be fired. These circumstances have to be examined closely. The good thing is that if you have something written in place in your operating agreement or in your business, not your business plan, how you run the business, but the operating agreement. I've talked about this before closing today's video. Don't get caught by surprise when some of these circumstances happen, sadly, at your workplace, at your business, and you're not sure how to handle them. It could be any kind of a complaint, and you find yourself kind of lost. Why is this happening to me? And how much is that going to cost me? How much is that going to affect the employee? And the morale of the rest of the employees. Somebody's let go, they leave. You should have policies in place. But workplace violence has not been like on the headlines a lot lately. Other circumstances are, but we will touch on some of those topics as well, and how to let someone go where it doesn't result in a very unsafe situation for everyone else. And I wanted to close with that. I hate you with a lot of negative stuff. I'm not going to touch base on the Boulder attack today, but I will get to that one. I think I want more information on that one, but it's horrific. I think most people would agree to that. Vulnerabilities on that one, I'll give you a parting thought. Any group that gathers to exercise their rights and peaceable assembly should consider the other guy's thinking. And I'm saddened to say that while we have the right to express ourselves, other people don't want that. And it should be a vulnerability that needs to be looked at before organizing any kind of a gathering, and discussed in depth how to protect ourselves from being victims of an attack like that. I'm sure this guy was visible for quite some time. I would be shocked to see people noticing a behavior. Like he posed, okay, now I'm going into it. He was posing as a gardener, no shirt on, he's wearing jeans. I don't know, do you do gardening in your jeans? And seems like they belong in the particular area, but what else could have someone had done to identify that maybe this could be a threat? But if we go into that mindset, going into the game, we're doing what we do every day that we believe in, and factoring in something that happens like this that is always should always be considered to be within the realm of possibility. Just be prepared mentally. Like the cop in the beginning of my video, I talked about just presence of mind, trying to continue to de-escalate before it gets to the point, but if already being informed that this is what's going to go down. It doesn't may not be right this minute, but it's coming. And then you have to know how to act and how to take action. And spotting something that seems rather unusual, seems normal, but then out of place. It's always a good thing to do an advanced check, maybe an hour prior to. That's what this guy did. He showed up about an hour before the event, before the gathering. Why wouldn't we, if we are about to gather someplace and hold a rally, for example, why don't we do the same thing? And I'm talking about in general for the people that engage in freedom of speech. They want to do it publicly. And that's of concern, but I would recommend just the sobering thought. Again, I'll drill into your heads. Plan ahead, maybe hit it an hour or two. An hour is pretty reasonable, 45 minutes before an event. Events can be canceled. They can be moved to another time. If you're dead, you can't do anything. If you end up in a hospital with a horrific injury, like this lady who's fighting for her life right now, a Holocaust survivor, can you imagine that? I'm trying not to, but it's just too horrible. It's hard to ignore, but it's also hard to believe that it still happens. So I advise you always have somebody that knows security. You may not pay them anything. Maybe they just want to, for the love of the work, to help people, and do in advance. Someone that was passed on recently told me, I don't know how somebody knew that I was doing something. Always consider that you are being watched by someone. And even though you may think that you're alone or somebody's not paying attention to you, someone is. And how do I know that? I know it from experience, that every time when I thought that I was simply alone or as far away from another person, someone comes out of nowhere. I'm the only one who doesn't belong in that environment. I'm entering an environment where someone else dominates. They're watching me. I was not aware. This happens a lot. And sometimes I catch it at the corner of my eye, like, where the hell did that guy come from? I did not hear footsteps. So in this case, posing as someone who's doing gardening for about an hour before your event doesn't seem so implausible anymore. Many crimes happen that way. They're watching. They watch for patterns, established patterns. If you go protest there or do a candlelight vigil at that one place every single time, somebody's going to pick up the pattern and they're going to decide to take action, whatever it is their motivation is. So I want to give you that just to think about. Someone is always watching. So why can't the rest of us be mindful of our environment and start watching as well? And with that, I know I'm such a ray of sunshine, but I guess what it is. Happy summer, and I will see you again soon. Thanks for watching.